November 18, 1978, 5:12 p.m. Deep in the jungle of Guyana, Jim Jones stood before 918 people and told them they were about to die. Children first. Parents watched. Then they stepped forward themselves, one by one, cup after cup. Less than an hour later, most of the community was dead. And the most disturbing fact is this: Jim Jones did not force most of them to drink. He did not hold them down. He did not touch a single cup. By the time that day arrived, the real work had already been done. For 20 years, he had been training their brains to treat obedience as safety, doubt as danger, and loyalty as survival. What he used was not magic, not hypnosis, not mind control in the science fiction sense. It was a sequence of psychological techniques that modern researchers now study as a model of coercive control. And when psychologists later compared cult leaders with serial killers, they found something chilling. The same sequence appears again and again in the case files of some of the most prolific predators in American history. This is not a story about a cult. It is a story about how the human brain can be taught to trust the wrong person so completely that leaving begins to feel more dangerous than dying. Most people imagine brainwashing as a machine that erases a person's mind and replaces it. Nothing like that happened in Jonestown. The victim still had memories, personalities, dreams. What changed was something subtler: the brain's definition of safe. Coercive control works because it hijacks systems that normally help human beings survive. Attachment, belonging, reward, fear, and isolation. The process is surprisingly orderly. First, the target is flooded with acceptance. Then alternative sources of reality are removed. Finally, obedience is reinforced unpredictably until the brain becomes dependent on the person controlling the rewards. 3 phases, 3 neural systems. And almost no one notices the transition while it is happening. The person does not feel controlled. They feel chosen. Jim Jones was born in Indiana in 1931. Poor, lonely, obsessed with religion and death from childhood. By his 20s, he was preaching in Indianapolis. But his real talent was not preaching. It was making people feel seen. He remembered names, visited the sick, helped families with rent, sat with people no one else visited. For many black families, poor families, elderly people, and social outsiders in the 1950s, Jim Jones was the first person who treated them as if their lives mattered. That was not simply kindness, it was phase 1. Psychologists call it love bombing, an overwhelming surge of attention, praise, intimacy, and purpose delivered far faster than normal relationships develop. The brain responds chemically. Dopamine rises, oxytocin rises, social threat decreases. The prefrontal cortex becomes less critical and more trusting. The target does not think, "This person is manipulating me." They think, "This person finally understands me." Ted Bundy used the same opening. Witnesses repeatedly described him as warm, polite, vulnerable, even charming. He asked for help, appeared injured, made women feel uniquely trusted. Different crime, different setting, same first step. Create the bond before control begins. That is not coincidence. It is the entry point. By the early 1970s, Jones moved the People's Temple from Indiana to California, then from California to Jonestown, Guyana, a remote settlement surrounded by jungle. Each move was presented as a dream, a better society, a safer future, a place free from racism and corruption. But every move accomplished something else. It cut another thread. Family left behind, old friends left behind, churches left behind, neighbors left behind. Phone calls became difficult. Letters became rare. Isolation rarely feels like a prison when it arrives disguised as a new beginning. This is why phase 2 is so powerful. It removes comparison. When only one voice remains, that voice becomes reality. If Jones said the outside world wanted to destroy them, who could contradict him? If Jones said defectors were traitors, who could offer another explanation? A brain without reference points becomes frighteningly easy to orient. Not because it becomes stupid, because it becomes alone. Then came the White Nights. sirens in the middle of the night, loudspeakers announcing enemies were approaching. Members ordered to gather immediately, cups distributed, drink. Panic surged through the pavilion. People obeyed. Then Jones revealed it was a test. They had proven loyalty. Months later, it happened again, then again. No schedule, no warning. Behavioral psychologists call this intermittent reinforcement, the same mechanism that makes gambling addictive. When rewards or punishments arrive unpredictably, the brain becomes more focused on the source than it does under consistent conditions. Uncertainty creates obsession. By 1978, many temple members had rehearsed dying for Jones repeatedly, holding a cup, waiting for instructions, watching others comply. November 18th was not the first time they performed that behavior. It was the first time the cup contained poison. The same three phases appear across serial killer cases, not as coincidence, as documented pattern. John Edward Robinson, the first identified internet serial killer, 1990s. Targeted women through online support groups, posed as a mentor, provider, man of resources, offered jobs, housing, purpose to women who were isolated and struggling. Love bombing. Moved victims to remote locations, cut them off from support networks. Isolation. Alternated between extreme generosity and sudden cruelty. Gifts, then punishment. Warmth, then complete withdrawal. The slot machine effect. His victims stayed, not because they could not leave, because the same neural systems that kept Jonestown members in the jungle were keeping them in the relationship. The brain under coercive control does not experience the situation as a trap. It experiences leaving as the threat. Psychologists call the attachment that forms under coercive control trauma bonding. It is not weakness. It is a measurable neurological state. Under chronic stress combined with unpredictable positive reinforcement, the brain releases cortisol in cycles. When the controller provides relief, even briefly, the brain registers the controller as the source of safety, not danger, safety. The amygdala, the threat detection center, has been reconditioned to associate the controller's presence with relief. This is the same mechanism as Stockholm Syndrome, the same mechanism in domestic abuse cycles worldwide. And it is exactly what Jim Jones built over 20 years before November 18, 1978. Earlier that day, Congressman Leo Ryan arrived in Jonestown to investigate abuse allegations. Several members asked to leave with him. At the nearby airstrip, Ryan and others were shot. Jones knew the outside world would soon arrive. At 5:12 p.m., he assembled the community in the pavilion. The final white night had begun. Poison was prepared. Infants were dosed first. Children followed. Parents watched. Then adults stepped forward. Some hesitated. A few ran into the jungle. Most stayed, not because they were physically prevented, because 20 years of conditioning had made Jim Jones the definition of reality, and he had told them this was the right thing to do. Approximately 918 people died, one of the largest losses of American civilian life before September 11th. A small number escaped into the jungle. Odell Rhodes, Stanley Clayton, a handful of others. Researchers later found what they had in common. Each had maintained at least one connection to the outside world, however small, that Jones had not fully severed. A family member still in contact, a friendship outside, a memory of a reality before Jones. The thread was thin, but it held. Isolation removes those threads, cut them, and conditioning has nothing to compete with. The survivors were not different people. They were people who still had something to compare Jones's reality to. Every study on coercive control produces the same finding. When people are shown how these mechanisms work, most respond the same way. I would have seen through it. The research consistently shows they are wrong. The techniques work most effectively on intelligent, skeptical, self-aware people because they believe their skepticism makes them immune. It does not. The brain's social bonding systems have no bypass for high IQ. The belief that you are immune is not protection. In several documented cases, it is the first vulnerability the controller identifies and exploits. Jonestown changed how psychologists, law enforcement, and courts understand control. The term coercive control entered clinical and legal language directly from studying cases like this. Today, it is a criminal offense in several U.S. states and multiple countries. The FBI's Behavioral Science Unit expanded its profiling to include cult dynamics, specifically because the same psychological signatures appeared in both cult leaders and serial killers. The same profile, the same 3 phases, the same neural targets. If this video gave you what the true crime genre usually doesn't, not just what happened, but the psychology that makes it possible, that is what CurioMind is built to produce. Subscribe. Next week, a man who evaded police for 30 years while working as a church president, compliance officer, and Boy Scout leader. He sent them taunting letters for decades. Then he sent the evidence that caught him, not by accident, on purpose. The brain behind crime.